I'm not a bad wife. At least I don't see myself that way. I didn't sleep with anyone. I didn't run away. I didn't destroy our home on purpose. I only flirted with a bartender one night, smiled a bit too much, let him pour me a few free drinks. That is all. People do worse every weekend and still call it just having fun. The real problem started because someone watched me. Not Ethan, of course. He never even comes out with us. It was his friend, Noah. He sat a few tables away at the bar, acting like he was busy with his co-workers, and saw me laughing, leaning on the counter, letting the bartender draw a small heart in lime juice near my glass. I thought it was cute. I thought it was nothing. By the next morning, that nothing was already turning into a story. By the end of the month, it was evidence. That is what still shocks me. A little attention, a stupid joke, and suddenly I'm the unfaithful wife, and Ethan is the quiet victim with papers in his hand and a lawyer behind him. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Back then, none of that was real. Back then, it was just a Friday, and I told myself I deserved a break. The gym had been crazy all week. People complained about membership fees, towels, broken headphones. I smiled, nodded, fixed things. I listened to every small problem. By the time I closed the desk, my head hurt and my feet burned. So when Mila asked if I wanted a girls' night, I said I needed it. I said I was going or I would explode. At home, Ethan sat at the table with his laptop and a stack of math tests. His shoulders were hunched. There was a pen behind his ear, another in his hand. He asked how my day was, and I said it was long and annoying, and I did not want to talk about treadmills anymore. He asked what I wanted for dinner, and I said I was going out with Mila. He looked up, slow, like he did not want to start a fight. He said he had an early class. He asked if I could please not come back too late. That line annoyed me. He said it often when I wanted to go out. Not too late, not too loud, not too much. I told him I was not a teenager, and he did not own the night. I said it was just a few drinks and he should be happy his wife was still fun. He tried to say he was just worried about me taking a taxi so late, but I had already decided to hear it as control, not care. I told him if he trusted me, he would not repeat the same little warning every time I touched lipstick. Tessa sat at the coffee table with her crayons. She asked if I was going somewhere pretty. I told her Aunt Mila and I were going to a nice place on a roof, and that next time, when she was older, maybe she could see the lights too. Ethan told her it was bedtime soon. He said he would read her a story. I kissed Tessa's head and said Daddy was boring and needed early nights, but Mama still had energy. I said it in a light tone, as a joke, but I watched Ethan's jaw tighten. He did not argue in front of her. He never did. I got ready fast. Black dress, simple but tight enough to show that I still had a shape. I fixed my hair, added some highlighter, checked myself in the mirror. I told myself I had earned this. I told myself respect follows results, and I had results. I kept the house. I did school runs. I worked my job, so I was allowed to enjoy a little attention. Ethan watched me from the bedroom door. He said I looked nice, but his voice was flat. He asked again what time I would be back. I said late, and that he could survive. I grabbed my bag and left before he could say anything else. Mila met me outside the metro station. She hugged me and said I looked hot, that all the men would stare. I laughed and said maybe they should, because at home no one noticed. She asked about Ethan, if he was okay with tonight. I told her he was being dramatic again, talking about early mornings and safety. Mila rolled her eyes and said he needed to relax. It felt good to hear that. I wanted someone to agree with me, and she did. Skyline 12 was busy and loud. Music thumped under our feet, and the city lights spread out in every direction. The bar at the edge of the roof glowed with blue light. Marco stood behind it, shaking a silver shaker. I had seen him once before, That night he had called me gym girl and said I had a strong walk. It had made me laugh then. When he saw me this time, he smiled like we were old friends. He asked where I had been hiding. I told him I had been buried in work and motherhood. He asked what we wanted to drink. I said I trusted his choice. He leaned on the bar and said that was dangerous. I liked that line. It made me feel exciting instead of tired. He poured something bright and sweet, slid it toward me without taking a payment. Mila nudged me and whispered that I had a fan. I said it was just good service, and that he was like that with everyone. But inside, I liked that she had noticed. We found a spot near the railing. I leaned my elbows on the high table, facing Marco. The air was cool, my drink was cold, and for a moment I felt like I was 20 again. I laughed louder than usual. I tossed my hair. When Marco had a break between orders, he came over and asked how the gym was. I told him about annoying members, making it sound funny. He asked if my husband minded late nights. I said he complained, but he would survive. I added that if he wanted a housewife, he should have married someone else. That line always made me feel powerful. I did not see Noah at first. I did not even know he was there. Later, he told Ethan that he had been at a table near the middle with some co-workers, celebrating some work project. He said he noticed me because I laughed loud and my dress was bright against the dark bar. He said it the way someone describes a car alarm, not a beautiful thing. I hated that image later, but that night I did not see him at all. At one point, Marco drew a small heart in lime juice on the bar near my glass. He did it quickly with a slice of lime, this tiny wet shape on the dark counter. He asked if I liked extra lime. I laughed and said maybe he liked me extra. Mila snorted and told me I should enjoy it. I touched the little heart with my finger and tapped it away. In my mind, that erased everything. Heart gone, no proof. My phone buzzed. Ethan asked when I would be home. I looked at the time. It was later than I had planned, but I was not ready to leave. I sent him a quick message saying we were just finishing up and I would not be long. That was not true. I ordered another drink right after and stayed in the same spot. I told myself that just finishing up could mean anything. When Marco had a free moment, he leaned over the bar and asked if I came there often. I told him sometimes, when life felt heavy. He asked if he could let me know when there was live music. I hesitated. He held up the card machine and said he could add my number under a loyalty thing. I knew that was not a real program. I knew it was personal. I still typed my number with my finger on the screen. He pretended to save it in the system, but I saw him tap his phone as well. Later, Mila went to the bathroom, and I stood alone at the bar for a moment. That is when I finally saw Noah. He was at a table closer to the door, holding a beer, watching. He did not smile. He lifted his hand in a small wave. I waved back, a little stiff. He pointed at his watch and gave me a look that said it was late. I shrugged and turned back to my drink, heat rising in my face. I told myself it was fine. I told myself he did not hear anything, did not see much, that he would mind his own business. On the ride home, Mila said Noah had looked upset and quiet. I said that was just his usual face and that he liked to judge people. I said if he told Ethan anything, it would be out of jealousy, not care. When I walked into the apartment, the lights were low. Ethan sat on the couch with the TV on mute. He asked if I had fun. I said it was fine, nothing special. I did not mention Marco. I did not mention the drinks or the heart or the number. I rolled my eyes when Ethan glanced at the clock. I told him he was being dramatic again and that I was tired. I went to the bedroom without waiting for a reply. The next morning, while I made coffee, Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. I did not mean to look, but my eyes went to the screen. It was a message from Noah. He said they needed to talk about last night. My hand paused over the kettle. For a second, my chest felt tight. Then I told myself Noah was probably just being overprotective. I told myself I could fix whatever he said with a better story. Noah did not come over that weekend like he sometimes did. Usually he visited on Sundays with Mila. They brought pastries, Ethan made coffee, and they talked about stupid things like TV shows and school events. This time, the day stayed empty. Ethan worked at the table, quiet. I told myself he was just busy, that it had nothing to do with me. I decided not to ask. On Monday, Mila sent me a message while I was at the reception desk. She asked if I wanted brunch on Wednesday, her day off. I said yes right away. I needed to tell my side before Noah poisoned everyone. I wanted to hear what he had said. I wanted to shape it, soften it, make it sound like nothing. Wednesday, the cafe was half full. Soft music, people tapping on laptops, the smell of coffee and fry oil. I arrived early on purpose so I could speak before she did. When Mila walked in, she hugged me and said I looked tired. I said I was fine, just stressed, and that Ethan was acting strange. That got her attention, just like I knew it would. I told her Ethan had been cold since the night at the bar. I said he slept badly, stayed up late, and stared at his laptop more than usual. I said he looked at me like I had done something huge, when it was only a bit of fun. Mila frowned and asked if this was about Marco. I lifted my eyebrows and asked what she meant. She said Noah had mentioned something he saw, that he did not like how close the bartender was standing. I laughed in a sharp way and said Noah was dramatic. I told her he was always like that, quiet and judging, making a big thing out of nothing. I said Marco was just being friendly, that he did it for tips, and that the free drink was hardly a crime. I asked if the story sounded bad to her. Mila shook her head and said it sounded normal. She said to her it sounded like a jealous husband problem. I leaned into that word, jealous. It helped. I said that was exactly it, that Ethan took Noah's side right away, that he did not even give me a chance to explain. I said it felt like I was on trial for smiling. I did not tell her Ethan had not yelled. I did not tell her he had only asked simple questions. I painted him like a man pacing and shouting. I added color that he never used. Mila's face hardened against him. She said a man should trust his wife. She said if he had a problem, he should go out more instead of keeping me home. I nodded and agreed, happy to hear the words. I told her I was tired of being treated like a risk, not a partner. The more we talked, the smaller Noah became, and the bigger Ethan's fault grew, at least in my version. That night, Ethan asked if we could talk after Tessa went to bed. His voice was careful, like he was stepping on glass. I said fine. I tucked Tessa in, told her a short story, and came back to the living room. He sat on the couch with his laptop closed, hands folded. He said Noah had called him about the bar. He said he had not asked for details, but Noah had given them anyway, because he was worried. He described what Noah said, me leaning over the bar, Marco touching my wrist, a heart shape near my drink, my number on that little machine. He said it calmly, but the list made my neck feel hot. I knew this was the moment where I could admit something. I could say yes, it looked bad. Yes, I went too far, but nothing really happened. Instead, I went straight to offense. I told him Noah must have seen wrong. I said the bar was crowded, and Noah had probably been drunk. I said it was insane, that he believed a friend over his own wife. Ethan did not raise his voice. He just said it hurt that another man knew more about my night than he did. He said he was embarrassed when Noah mentioned the number. I felt cornered. I did not like that word, embarrassed. It made him sound human, not like the strict father figure I wanted him to be in this story. So I changed the story. I said the number was for promos the bar sent out, nothing personal. I said Marco did that with everyone. I knew it was half true at best, but it sounded clean. When Ethan asked why I had not mentioned it before, I said because I knew he would twist it into drama. I made his reaction the problem, not my choice. He tried to explain that it was not about controlling me. It was about trust. He said it was hard to trust when I kept changing small details. I rolled my eyes and asked if he wanted me to be ugly and never talk to anyone. I said if a simple smile caused this much trouble, then maybe he wanted a different kind of wife. That line hit him. I saw it in his face. He went quiet. In that silence, I felt power. It felt like a win, even though I now see it was just a cut. He stood up and said he didn't want to fight. He said he would sleep on the couch that night. I told him he was being dramatic. He said he just needed space to think. He took a pillow and a blanket from the bedroom and walked out. When I went to brush my teeth, I passed the dining table. His laptop was open, the screen dim but not off. A folder sat on the desktop, named only with a date, the same date as the bar night. For a second, I felt a strange chill. Then I told myself he was just organizing lessons or tests. I turned away. I did not want to ask. The next day at school pickup, the playground was full of kids and parents. Tessa ran to me, waving a drawing. I hugged her and asked about her day. 2 mums I knew came over, smiling. One of them asked how our fancy roof bar night had been. I realized Mila had talked. I told them it was fun, but said my husband had turned it into a whole thing. They leaned in, hungry for details. I told them Ethan had acted like I had cheated just for talking to a bartender. I made his questions sound sharp and bitter, like he had shouted accusations. I said he moved to the couch just because I got a free drink. One mum laughed and said some men were so insecure. The other said her husband was the same. Their words warmed me. I used their laughter like armor. Across the yard, Ethan stood near the gate, watching Tessa on the slide. I did not know he could hear parts of our talk. Later, I noticed his jaw tight again. When I walked over with Tessa, he gave me a small nod, nothing more. On the way home, he spoke only about homework and dinner. No mention of the bar, no mention of Noah. That evening, I told Mila over messages that Ethan was giving me the silent treatment now. I said it was cruel. She answered that I should not let him emotionally punish me for being attractive. I liked that phrase. I repeated it in my head. Emotional punishment. It made me feel like the victim, not the one who had hidden things. It made it easier to ignore the look on his face when he carried his pillow back to the couch. At the gym, the story grew bigger without me even trying. Or maybe I did try. Maybe I liked the way it felt when people took my side. On Friday morning, I stood behind the reception desk, scanning passes and handing out towels. My coworker, Lena, leaned on the counter between clients and asked how things were at home. She knew Ethan, knew he was quiet. I told her he was in one of his moods. She asked what happened, and I saw an opening. I told her about the bar, but not the real version. I said a bartender had given me 1 free drink and made a small joke, and that Ethan had lost it after hearing it from Noah. I made his calm questions sound like sharp demands. I said he had moved to the couch and acted like I had done something unforgivable. Lena shook her head and said that was toxic. That word made me feel strange and proud at the same time. She said men like that were insecure and needed therapy, not wives. I laughed and agreed. I told her if he kept it up, I might as well enjoy the attention somewhere else. That line was half a joke, half a test. She did not seem shocked. She just said I deserved better than a jealous man. Later, during my lunch break, I sat in the back room scrolling my phone. I posted a story of my coffee cup with a text over it. Some husbands can't handle their wives getting attention. Imagine being that weak. I did not name Ethan. I did not have to. The people who mattered knew. Hearts and laughing reactions rolled in. Mila replied with a fire emoji. Another friend sent, "Preach." Every reaction felt like a vote for my side. When I came home that evening, Ethan was at the table again, papers in front of him. He had his laptop open and a small notebook beside it. He barely looked up when I walked in. I waited for him to ask about my day so I could throw a line at him, but he just said dinner was in the oven and that Tessa had finished her homework. His voice was flat, neutral. I tried to poke him. I told him about how clients at the gym flirted with me and how I could have anyone if I wanted. I expected him to react, to show jealousy, to argue. He only said it was not something he wanted to hear. I rolled my eyes and said he should be grateful other people found me attractive, that it meant he had done well. He did not answer. He just wrote something in his notebook. That small action bothered me more than any shout would have. I went to look at his laptop later when he left it on the table to put Tessa to bed. The screen showed a spreadsheet. It was simple, dates in one column, locations in another, and short notes I could not fully read from where I stood. I saw words like bar, posts, and couch. My stomach turned. I told myself he was being dramatic, making lists like some lawyer, but I still stepped back from the screen. On Sunday, Mila suggested a group brunch. She said Noah wanted to get out of the house and see Tessa. We met at a cafe with big windows and long tables. A few other friends were there too. Tessa sat between me and Ethan, coloring on the paper menu. Noah sat across from us, stiff, like he had a weight on his shoulders. I decided to control the story in front of everyone. While we waited for food, I said I had a funny story about how serious Ethan was about that bar night. I made my voice light and playful, like it was harmless gossip. I told them he had interrogated me like a cop over a free drink. I said he acted like I had kissed the bartender on the roof, even though I had only smiled. People laughed. One friend shook his head and said classic teacher brain, that Ethan probably graded his wife the same way he graded tests. I joined in, saying he probably had a red pen ready for my outfits. I watched their faces turn toward me, all on my side, all entertained. Noah did not laugh. He just watched Ethan, who kept his eyes on his coffee. I could feel the tension, but I kept going. I said some men wanted their wives to wear bags and stay quiet so no one else would notice them. I said I deserved better. The others murmured, nodded, or smiled. Mila said I was too pretty to be stuck with someone who made such a big deal about flirting. She did not even glance at Noah. Finally, Noah cleared his throat. He said it had not just been a free drink. He said the bartender had been standing very close. He said it had looked like more than just service. He spoke soft, but everyone heard. In that moment, I felt anger rise in me, bright and hot. I said he was remembering wrong. I said he was jealous because no girl flirted with him. That got a cheap laugh from one of the guys. I hated myself for using that, but I loved the power of the laugh. Ethan quietly told Noah it was fine, that he did not want to argue. He rested a hand on Tessa's shoulder and asked her about her drawing. On the surface, I had won. People laughed at my jokes, not at him. But Noah's face stayed in my mind. He looked more sad than angry. When we left, he pulled Ethan aside for a moment. They spoke in low voices near the door. I pretended not to care. Later, in the car, Ethan did not mention brunch at all. He drove in silence. Tessa hummed to herself in the back seat. I stared at my phone, at the likes on my story. A few nights later, I came home from a late shift. The apartment was dark, except for the blue glow from the living room. Ethan sat at the table again. The printer hummed beside him. A sheet of paper slid out slowly. When I stepped closer, he pressed the power button, and the machine stopped. He said it was just schoolwork. His tone was calm, almost too calm. I glanced at the stack of papers near his elbow. I saw my own social media posts on the top one, tiny pictures, and text frozen on white paper. My chest went tight. He turned the stack over, hiding them. I said he was being creepy, printing things like that. I asked if he was planning to sue me for being funny. I wanted him to snap, to shout, to give me something loud I could use. He did not. He just said he needed to protect himself. Those words made me feel like the villain in someone else's movie. He slipped the papers into a plain folder and closed it. The folder had no label on the outside, just a sticky note inside that I could not read. He stood up, walked to the bedroom, and placed it in the bottom drawer of his nightstand. I heard the small click of the lock when he shut it. I lay awake that night listening to the soft sounds of his laptop keys from the other room and the tiny buzz of his phone when another reminder appeared on his screen. I kept telling myself he would calm down, that this was all a phase, like when he got obsessed with running and tracked every step for 3 months, then forgot about it. I told myself the same thing would happen with the folder, the notes, the printing. He would get bored of it and move on. Instead, the distance became normal. He stayed on the couch most nights now. He did not slam doors or shout. He just turned off his side of our life with quiet clicks and short answers. I started to hate his calm more than I ever hated any argument. There was nothing I could grab, nothing to push back on, just his silence and that locked drawer. One afternoon, while Tessa watched cartoons, I went into the bedroom and tried the drawer. The handle did not move. I pulled harder. It stayed shut. I felt stupid, kneeling on the floor, tugging like a child. I whispered that he was insane, that who locks a nightstand in their own house? When I heard his key in the door, I jumped up, shut the bedroom door halfway, and pretended to fold laundry. He walked in, asked if I had seen Tessa's schoolbook. I shook my head, cheeks warm. He looked at the drawer, then at me, and did not say anything. That silence burned more than an accusation. I snapped and asked if he was hiding money from me now. He said calmly that he was just organizing paperwork. Then he left the room. A few days later, Irene's birthday came up. She kept it simple every year, only a small dinner at a family restaurant. She called me to remind me about the time. Her voice was polite, but I could hear something tight under it. She asked how things were. I said they were fine, that Ethan was just sensitive lately. She did not respond right away. Then she said we would talk later, in person. At the restaurant, long tables lined the middle. Irene sat near the center, cousins and siblings around her. Ethan and I arrived with Tessa a little late. Tessa ran to hug her grandmother with a little gift bag. Irene smiled and thanked her. She hugged me too, but the hug was brief. She looked at Ethan longer than usual, like she was checking his face for cracks. We sat down and I watched the group. Some of Ethan's cousins glanced at us with vague curiosity. I knew Noah had already told his side to some of them. Mostly they kept their eyes on the menus. I decided I would manage this night. I would show them I was the one keeping the mood light, that he was the problem. During the appetizers, someone asked how work was for me. I said the gym was busy, that people liked to talk to me. I made it sound nice. Then I shifted. I said I had to be careful, because if a man gave me one free drink or one extra smile, I might get charged with cheating at home. I smiled as I said it, like a joke. A few people laughed. I heard one cousin mutter that some men were old school. I let that hang. I caught Gina's eye across the table. She raised her eyebrows and asked what I meant. That was my cue. I told the story again, soft and sad this time, like I was tired. I said a bartender had been friendly, that Noah had seen it, and that Ethan had turned it into a big crime. I said he had moved to the couch and started treating me like an enemy. I said I felt like I was living with a judge, not a husband. I did not mention my posts or the mocking. I did not mention the number or the heart in lime juice. Gina shook her head, clicked her tongue, and said, "Some men could not handle a confident woman." She said Ethan should be proud that other people found me attractive, that it made him look good. She called him fragile, said it straight across the table. Irene's jaw tightened. She asked, in a quiet voice, if that was the full story. She said she had heard something about social media and jokes. I smiled without teeth and said people always made things bigger than they were. I said it was getting out of control. I made myself the victim of gossip, not the source. I added that Ethan refused to talk, that he punished me with silence instead of working it out like an adult. I said that in front of everyone, like I was brave. Ethan put his fork down. He did not look at me. He said he did not want to discuss our marriage at a birthday dinner. His tone was calm but firm. He asked if we could focus on Irene. That annoyed me. It sounded like he was above it all. I said if he did not want people to know about our problems, he should have not turned a drink into a crisis. Irene intervened. She said this was not the time. She put a hand on Ethan's arm and told him they could talk later if needed. Gina, not liking that, said aloud that if her husband had acted like Ethan, she would have left him. She told the whole table that no one should live with a man who cannot handle a little harmless flirt. The air went tight. Some cousins looked down at their plates. Noah, near the end of the table, cleared his throat but did not speak. I felt all eyes on Ethan. For once, he looked up. He met my gaze. Then he said very quietly that there was nothing harmless about using your spouse as a joke in front of half the city. His voice did not shake. I said he was exaggerating, that it was just a few posts. He said that for weeks, everywhere he went, people came up to him knowing half a story. He said they laughed about a night he did not attend. He said he had heard enough. He pushed his chair back and stood up, excused himself for a moment and went outside. I watched him go, heat crawling under my skin. I wanted him to stay and argue so I could prove he was unstable. Instead, he walked away. Gina leaned toward me and whispered that he was sulking. She said men like that needed a wake-up call. She suggested I should show him I was serious about being respected. The idea made my heart beat faster. I liked the word wake-up call. After dessert, things settled. Ethan came back quiet again. He helped Tessa with her coat. When we left, Irene hugged him and whispered something in his ear. He nodded. She hugged me too, but her eyes were searching. In the car, the ride home was heavy and silent. The next morning, I noticed a new paper on the fridge. It was a printed schedule, neat and simple, showing Tessa's school days, my shifts, and Ethan's classes. At the bottom, in small letters, it said shared responsibilities. I snorted and said it looked like a court document. He said nothing. Later, when I passed his open laptop, I saw a new calendar reminder. Meeting, personal. The time was mid-morning downtown. I asked if he had a dentist appointment. He said it was just something he needed to handle. That afternoon, he dressed more neatly than usual, put the plain folder into his bag, and left. I told myself he was being dramatic, maybe talking to a counselor, maybe trying to scare me. I told myself he would come back, ready to talk. When he returned, he looked tired but steady. He was more distant, but also more sure. He did not ask for a fight. Instead, he started using shorter sentences, like a script. He told me when he would pick up Tessa, when he would be home, where the bills stood. It felt like he was talking to a roommate, not a wife. I called him cold. I told him he was abandoning me emotionally. He said he was just being clear. One night, after Tessa fell asleep, I asked him directly what he was going to do. I demanded to know if he was planning to leave. I wanted drama. I wanted tears or pleas or something big I could point to. He looked me in the eye for the first time in days. He said he would not be the punchline anymore. He said he would handle it properly. The way he said that word made my stomach twist. Properly. Like there was a system, a path, a plan that did not include me at all. The next morning, when I checked the shared calendar on my phone, a new event appeared for later that week. Mediation, school, Thursday, 4 p.m., both parents. When I first saw the calendar entry, I thought it was a joke. Mediation, school, Thursday, 4 p.m., both parents. I laughed and told myself Ethan had finally reached the dramatic phase, making up serious names for simple talks. I guess the teacher had complained about Tessa's focus again, and he wanted to look official. I told Mila over chat that he was turning normal parenting into a legal event. She sent back a laughing emoji and said he was ridiculous. All week, I built my story in my head. I told myself, if any teacher mentioned tension at home, I would say we were just stressed, that Ethan was overreacting to a harmless bar night. I would say he was going through something and taking it out on me. I told myself that if he tried to make me look bad, I would cry just enough to flip the room. I had done it before, in smaller ways. I believed I could do it again. On Thursday, I dressed carefully. Not too fancy, but not careless. I wanted to look like a good mother, someone stable and normal. Jeans, a soft sweater, hair neat. Tessa wore her school uniform, her backpack bumping against her small shoulders as we walked into the building. She asked why we both had to be there. I said the school just liked when parents were involved. That felt safe to say. It was half true. The corridors smelled like cleaning spray and paper. Kids' art lined the walls, bright suns and stick figures. Other parents stood around, some checking phones, some talking. I saw two mothers who followed me on social media. They gave me small smiles that were not as warm as before. Maybe they had seen my posts and Ethan at the same time and started to put things together. I lifted my chin anyway. Ethan waited near the doors of the auditorium. He wore a simple button-up shirt and dark pants. Nothing dramatic, but cleaner than his usual school clothes. He held a neutral-colored folder under one arm. He greeted Tessa first, asked about her day, listened as she talked about a craft project. He smiled at her, in a way he had not smiled at me in weeks. Then he turned to me and said the school part would be quick, and after that someone needed to speak with me in the lobby. His tone was polite, careful. It sounded like he was reading from a script in his head. I asked if this was some kind of trick. I asked if he planned to ambush me. He said it was just a step, and that I would see. The calmness in his voice made my heart pound harder than any shout would have. The meeting in the auditorium was nothing. A teacher talked about reading levels and group projects. Ethan and I sat side by side, but might as well have been strangers. He asked one question about homework. I said nothing. My mind raced ahead to whatever he had planned. When it ended, parents started to drift out into the hallway. Children ran down the corridor, laughing. Teachers chatted. It was normal noise, normal life. Ethan touched my elbow lightly and asked if we could step just outside the main doors for a moment, away from the crowd. I nearly pulled back, but I did not want to create a scene if this was nothing. I still believed I could handle whatever it was. We came into the lobby area near the entrance. Light from the big windows poured in. A few parents lingered, putting on coats, checking bags. I saw Noah near the far wall, talking to a woman I guessed was his sister, a small child tugging at her hand. For a second, I thought Ethan had called him there to watch us fight. My chest tightened. I turned to Ethan, ready with a line about how pathetic it was to need an audience. Before I could speak, a man in a plain jacket stepped toward us. He held a stack of papers in one hand. He said my full name and asked me to confirm it. People nearby turned their heads at the sound of a full name spoken in such a flat, official tone. My stomach dropped. I confirmed without thinking, because that is what you do when someone says your name that clearly. He placed the papers into my hands and said they were for me. The weight of the stack surprised me. It felt heavier than paper should. My fingers shook. I asked what this was. He said he was instructed to deliver legal documents and that everything I needed to know was in them. His voice was calm, almost bored. He turned and left through the glass doors without drama, as if he was just a delivery person dropping off a package. For a moment I stood there, not moving. The lobby noise faded into a dull blur. I looked at Ethan. He did not reach for me. He did not apologize. He just watched me with that steady, tired expression I had seen in the mirror lately. He said this was the proper way. He said he hoped I would actually read everything before speaking. I forced a laugh. I said he must be joking. I said this was insane, that he had gone too far over a few bar jokes. My voice sounded thin even to my own ears. I looked down at the top page. Words swam into focus. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Underneath, our names, our address, dates, then a line about emotional infidelity and ongoing public humiliation. I felt heat rush up my neck. I flipped the page too fast, trying to find a part that made sense. A list of temporary orders. Who would stay in the apartment for now? how expenses would be divided, how accounts would be handled. It said Ethan would retain control of the joint savings while a fair split was decided. It said major purchases needed agreement in writing. It said we each had to provide full financial information. It was dry and cold and real. The next page mentioned Tessa. My vision blurred for a second. It said temporary custody, shared arrangements, specific days and times. It outlined handoffs, school pickups, holidays. It said Tessa was not to be present at bars or in adult-only environments and should not be exposed to romantic partners of either parent until certain steps were taken. That line hit me like a slap. The paper used stiff language, but I could see the message: no more jokes about bartenders with my daughter in the house. I saw an index at the back. It listed exhibits, screenshots of my social media posts with dates and captions, notes about sleeping separately. Witness statement from Noah Reyes regarding the event at Skyline 12. It was written there, in black and white, like a story I did not control. I looked up and saw Noah watching quietly from his spot. He lifted his eyes, met mine, then looked away. He did not seem pleased. He seemed sad and firm. Mila stood near him, holding their child's hand, her face pale. She avoided my gaze. The mothers who had laughed with me at pickup now whispered to each other, glancing at the papers in my hands and at Ethan's calm posture. I said this was revenge, that he was trying to destroy me. I said he was making me look crazy in public. Ethan shook his head once. He said this was not revenge. He said he was done asking me to stop using him as a joke. He said if I wanted to keep telling stories, I could do it without him. He pointed gently to the documents and said everything important was in them. I started to argue, but the words caught. What could I say? That the flirting was nothing, when a witness statement was attached. That I had not humiliated him, when whole pages of my own posts were printed in his folder. That the marriage was fine, while Tessa's schedule was now laid out in a legal plan so she would not be pulled back and forth by my moods. Tessa came out of the auditorium doors, holding a drawing of a house. She ran to us, smiling, asking if we had seen her art. I quickly pressed the papers against my side, trying to hide them. My hands shook so much the pages shifted. Ethan crouched down to her level. He told her we would talk later and that Grandma would be happy to see the picture. His voice was gentle, steady. He did not look like a weak man then. He looked like someone who had made a hard choice and was standing inside it. Noah walked over and asked Ethan softly if he was okay. Ethan nodded and thanked him. He said he appreciated Noah being honest, even when it was uncomfortable. I stood there, hearing every word, feeling like the floor had tilted. Mila squeezed my arm lightly, as if she wanted to say something, then dropped her hand. No one laughed now. Ethan took Tessa's hand and headed toward the door with Noah. They stepped through the automatic glass panels into the bright outside light. I stayed in the lobby, clutching the papers, eyes on the black print where it said, "Temporary orders effective immediately." For the first time, my jokes, my posts, my harmless flirting had a start date and a case number. They had become part of a record I could not edit. The doors closed behind Ethan with a soft hiss, and I was left standing there, my name printed at the top of every page, wondering when exactly a little attention at a bar turned into my life being divided in ink. I'm still standing in that lobby, holding the papers like they might catch fire. A woman from the office steps closer, asks if I understand I've been served. I nod, because I don't trust my voice. She points to the last page, to a blank line under my full name. She says I just need to sign to show I received everything. It sounds simple, like signing for a package. My hand shakes as I take the pen. The words above the line blur, but I can still see Ethan's name printed across from mine. Petitioner. Respondent. No husband, no wife, just roles on a form. I think about all the times I called him weak and boring, all the little laughs I collected like tips. I used his quiet for my jokes, and now his quiet is signed by someone with an office. I press the pen down and write my name. The ink dries fast. That is the moment, I guess, when flirting at a bar finally becomes real. I look back up, hoping someone will say this is a mistake. Nobody does. The doors slide open for another family, and I realize my part of the story is no longer the one that counts.